It's on Brave.
Nice.
That's good.
Most entertaining. Most entertaining. Okay, let me just mute this. Okay. Okay, so here we are. So good evening, everyone. My name is Justina Osovska, and I am the founder of Women in Blockchain Canada. And I'm very excited for this episode. We have a special guest from Brave Browser. And I have here my colleague Omar. So I would like to introduce everyone to Luke Malks. Go ahead, Luke.
Hi, how are you? Thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Very happy to have you. And Omar, why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm the CMO for Women in Blockchain Canada. I'm very excited to be here. I'm an economist, so I'm very I bring the side of the economic side and then the present value of the proposals and everything. So I'm here to learn from you guys and inspire us.
Thanks, Omar. Always with good energy. So, look, we're in an era where Bitcoin is in the mainstream media every day, and blockchain is the buzzword of the year, basically. So, can you? And with that, I think Brave is like the future of webs browsing. So, can you let people know what Brave Browser is and how it works, what it does?
Yeah, sure. So Brave is a privacy-focused browser, but really kind of more of a platform to kind of, and the way you can kind of think about it is, you know, big tech has been kind of invading your privacy, and users have been kind of feeling the bad end of the internet economy for a really long time. And what Brave's trying to do is kind of reset that and start with creating a web browser and a privacy platform that's user first, that it starts by being private by default. So that means that any third-party ad or tracking script that would load behind the scenes that you wouldn't be aware of that would collect your data, Brave just stops all of that, and in order to keep everything private. And then on top of that, we built in Brave Rewards, which has Brave ads and the basic attention token to create a new ad model so that users browse the web, they get rewarded with that for their attention, and then they can reward content creators and producers like yourself for viewing the content.
Yeah, that's really amazing. So could you can you kind of elaborate maybe on the content creation, because that's a big thing with NFT. So how is that? Can you explain to the audience how that works?
Yeah, sure. So content creators have traditionally made money from advertising, right? And the problem with the advertising model is that it is really bad for privacy. And so what we did is we created this path for creators to verify that they own, whether it's their web domain, a YouTube channel, a Twitch channel, a Vimeo account, Reddit, GitHub, Twitter, any of those accounts, or just a web domain. They can verify all those channels with Brave, and then go through a partner process with Uphold to basically accept BAT. And so people in Brave can then tip or automatically contribute BAT to those creators. And we have over 1 million content creators that have signed up with us to accept BAT on the platform. So as you're browsing, you're earning BAT for viewing Brave ads, and then you can tip. We have, like in Twitter, we have inline tipping. So if you like a tweet that somebody has made, you can tip them directly in the browser, or you can automatically contribute or tip creators on YouTube or anywhere that you consume content, really.
I love that. What I love about that is how it's turning the current model upside out, where we're like the product right now. My data is taken from Facebook and then it's being sold. And I don't even know to whom and for what, and I have no idea what's going on. And if you want to know what's going on, then you might as well read like how many pages of legal documents, which I don't think most people even understand. So like you said, it is tackling a situation right from the beginning. And so can you go into more of, like, other than content creation, like how your ads work so that people
Yeah.
can understand that as well?
Yeah, sure. So I was in advertising before I came to Brave. I was really kind of in the belly of the beast. I worked for a company that was kind of this intermediary between all of the ad products and market and then the big media companies. And so what I would do is kind of like hook up the new technology and get it operational and work with everybody to kind of in between. So what I saw there was just this tide of data collection happening, and Google really kind of coming in and taking over. But what was interesting about Brave was it was the first time I'd seen an alternative that actually was proposing something that was about having privacy and business kind of working together, because the incentives in advertising have been misaligned and in the wrong direction. Everybody was incentivized for giving more and more data, allowing the more data you could collect, the better you could profile people, the more you could get, a high value advertising, right? And so what we did with Brave is say, like, look, we'll use the BAT as kind of this unit of account, because users haven't been getting anything for their attention. You've been going, all this data is collected about you from ads, and you get nothing for it except for a slower connection, more data used, and just this constant tug of war between the content you really want and the advertising that's kind of just getting in the way all the time. And so what we did is, in order to create a private ad platform, we kind of had to turn the model inside out. When you go to a website outside of Brave and there are ads, there may be 3 to 5 ads load on the page, but each one of those ads sends a bunch of calls with your information in it to all these third parties, in order to even get the winning ad to be selected. It's like an auction. So your profile is basically getting auctioned off to all of these different buyers. And then the winning buyer actually serves you the ad and then has additional trackers that send more data back to either validate that it's, seen, or that it wasn't a fraud or whatever, right? So what you have is this huge system where nobody trusts each other. And in order for it to work, you have to have all these vendors collecting all of this data just to figure out if an ad was served or not. And what we did was we said, look, we don't have to do this whole cloud-based model where all your data is leaking every time you go to a web page. What we can do is the browser knows what you're doing. Like, you have browsing history, on your device that doesn't leave your device. It just sits there. And so you have other information, the browser is kind of your gateway to the web, right? So what we were able to do is actually almost like putting a smart ad server directly on the device that can actually match ads right on your device without any of your data having to leak it. So that's really what's different about Brave, is that we've kind of taken this old school model where you all your data is just being broadcasted all the time to all these buyers, and we've flipped it on its head and put a new way of matching ads directly in the browser on your device, so none of your device leaks. And then we have a reporting protocol that uses zero knowledge proofs to basically report back events so advertisers can get the analytics that they want, because all this data collection happens, right, like with all these third parties and these advertisers. But advertisers outside of Brave in the market, they don't care if it was you specifically, like they're not targeting a single individual, they are targeting audiences of individuals, right? So all this data collection is happening that's very personal, but it's not even really getting used in the way that people might think it would be used. So what we're doing is saying, look, you don't need to have any of that data. We can effectively match ads to you without having anyone know who you are, including Brave. So Brave doesn't even know who we are. Our whole thing is that we don't want to know. Like, we just want to be able to match something effectively,
Okay, can you just maybe elaborate for those who may not know zero knowledge proofs? I know you're an expert in this, but for everybody else in the audience, I think it could be helpful.
Yeah, so basically, you can report on an event and have it done in aggregation, so that mathematically proving that an event took place. So an impression was served for an ad, or an ad was clicked. You basically set up as almost like double-blinded system of reporting that the activity has happened without having it be attributed back to Luke seeing the ad, right? And that's kind of the main difference here, aside from all the jargon, is just that we have got a way of accounting that allows you to remain anonymous. That's the key thing here with our reporting system, is that it basically aggregates everything up so that the advertiser knows that these ads were effective where they were targeted, and then it keeps the user anonymous, so even Brave doesn't know who the user is. And that kind of, it keeps the user safe, because not only do they not have their own data leaked, but if something were to happen to Brave server, servers, like if law enforcement were to come or somebody were to come in and steal our servers or something like that, any act of God kind of stuff happens, your data is not even on our servers. We don't even know who you are. So like that's kind of the difference in our approach compared to like the rest of advertising, where they all, if the same time this is happening and we're coming out with this model where we don't want to know anybody, traditional advertising is going to these new models where it's like, I want to know who the individual person is, right? So it's like very different, very Jekyll and Hyde kind of dynamics right now in the market.
Well, Facebook just had a leak like
Right.
2 weeks ago.
Right.
It just shows the flaws in centralized systems. I mean, how many times has Visa and MasterCard, like there's so much fraud. So when people talk about security, they really need to understand that these systems, they're not flawless. And what you're saying makes a lot of sense to me. It's like saying, to transact, we don't need to know who you are. You can just have that transaction, know that it's validated, know that it happened cryptographically, right? You encrypt the data. And then, like you said, then even Brave doesn't know. And then it happens, it's recorded, but the information isn't stored. And I think that's also non-discriminatory. It's inclusive, because say you did like a topic, you can't be targeted for that.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think the way that we look at it too is it's kind of like, if for advertisers, I don't think that advertisers even want to have all this data, and I think that that's kind of part of what's coming to light in the fact that we have all these advertisers that keep spending with us, is that, advertisers really, what's most important to them is that they put $1 in, what do I get for that dollar out? Like do these ads move my product, or do that goal, accomplish that goal that I want to accomplish, right? And so a lot of our focus is on, okay, these targeting models of yesteryear that are super discriminatory, right? Like where you can get, like Facebook has really, really, really granular targeting. Like you don't need all of that if it's relevant to the context of what the user is doing. And if the user is kind of showing intent to purchase something, right, we can determine that locally on the device and show, okay, this user is shopping, or this user is researching, or this user is, whatever, like serve an ad that's relevant to that, scenario on the device. So that's kind of the difference, is that you don't need to have all these factors in order to effectively serve an ad to somebody. You just need to know, hey, if this person looks like they're shopping for a car, and it looks like they're shopping for a Toyota or a Japanese made car, show them a Honda ad. Or show them a Consumer Reports page that has their review on it, or whatever,
So it sounds like what you're saying, there's an over accumulation of personal data in the current systems. And what Brave is doing is saying, you are only in that moment, what is needed, you provide what's needed without that overload, essentially.
Yeah. I mean, like that's the biggest kind of interesting issue that's happening right now, is that all this data becomes a huge liability. Like you just said with the leaks, right? This data gets leaked out. Companies that are well-doing companies are getting caught up in this, and really, it's if it's not needed, then why are we doing it? And I think the answer from the existing market is just that this is the way that we've done it, right? Or Google has, taken over programmatic advertising, and Google uses all this data to target, right? Like, or these big companies do. It's all that we know. It's all that's been incentivized. There isn't a better way. And until we introduced this model, there was no alternative for this. I mean, really, other than going to like print ads or something, but you're not getting to people. And what we're doing with our model is it's opt-in, and it's basically like, if you want ads, you can have ads that respect your privacy, and you earn something from those ads, because that should have been how it should have been from the beginning. And outside of Brave, it's a free-for-all. And
yeah. And and in Canada, we do have advertising laws in terms of emails. It is opt-in systems. It is like they have to. There is like people just can't send you emails without your consent. There are laws in place for these kinds of things, which is it's really interesting that you touched on that from the beginning. And I think you're right. It is a system where they've done it, they've collected it, but like, why do you need it? Maybe some people. My thought is, if they do host your data, then they can, either so a company would sell it to advertising, or they would look at trends and then look at like further analyze you, which is like, it's trying to predict the future, and I think it is a dangerous game. And then it's like it's bringing to consumers, like it's almost like you said, targeting them, in a way, instead of just like allowing them to choose based on where they are in their in their life situation. So yeah, that's an interesting way of doing business that's new and fresh.
Well, and I
And
think it's just
Go
such a
ahead.
night, the data. I think if people had a better understanding of how lax and how much data was shared across companies that people have never heard of before, and how that data is repurposed, right? Like there are articles and stories out there about, marketing data being used and sold to people that are creating credit ratings, for people, so you go and apply for a credit card, and that marketing data is used against you, right? Like depending on what you're doing, right? This is
had no
not.
idea about
Oh
that.
yeah, well, at least in the U.S., and this is what part of the problem, is that the U.S. does not have a very clear definition of what privacy is. Europe does, and Canada has laws too, but in Europe it's very clear. Personal data is very cleanly defined in GDPR, and these business models are not compatible with it at all. Like that's the problem. It's just been so bad. There's been so much of an incentive to just share data and get as much data as possible that it's really kind of a critical time and I think that's why privacy is kind of coming front and center now, is because these are real liabilities now. Like there's a big costs involved if you don't play by the rules.
Correct.
And
In fact, some friends, they approach me many times like, well, what is this browser, and what is different? Why is better than the regular browser? And then the fact that the average Joe doesn't know really like their data they're sharing is actually like impressive, because they have been doing a really great job in hiding how we share data.
Yeah.
So how Brave is teaching like the newcomers, or to transcend from these platforms to others, in terms to like get a better understanding about their privacy?
Yeah, that's a great question. There's some cool things that happen when you start to protect people's privacy, right? Like the volume of these calls that we block, all these third-party requests that go out, they're massive. And when you block those, you actually end up with a huge performance benefit in the browser. The pages load like up to 3 times faster in Brave than they do, because all of this junk that's normally loading in the background that's collecting your data is blocked. You kind of cut the hydra off at the head, at the body basically, and you prevent all these extra calls from happening. Because it was really interesting. We used to run traffic capture, so you go to like a site like a CNN or a news site, and you could see how many total requests were called over like a minute, and it could be like 1,000 to 3,000 in some cases, network requests that are all happening on your computer to all these servers. And maybe 300 to 500 of those 3,000 are actually content that you're viewing. All of these other requests are just your data going to all these third parties.
Wow.
And so it's a massive amount. And we've done a couple of things in Brave. Like we have this, if you go to the new tab page in Brave, it keeps track of how many ads and trackers are blocked. And that number just skyrockets. Like it goes up a lot over time. But we also calculate, estimated time savings, and then how much data you're saving, because all these requests or all that data adds up. And so, it can be up to gigabytes of data that are saved just by blocking this stuff and protecting your privacy. So those are the angles that really work well when communicating this to people, because people understand, they feel performance. They know when something loads faster. They feel when something's lighter weight and easier to use. And so that's kind of the angle that we have, because all this stuff is so complicated. Even ad tech reporters just have a hard time kind of like wrapping their heads around how this stuff works. And that's because it's designed to be that way. Nobody wants anybody to know any of this stuff unless they're selling it or sharing it with them. So it's like very all you're trying to do is get an ad in front of somebody and account for it. But it's so complex that it's just like mind-numbingly eye-glazing stuff to talk to people about. But people get performance. They get it. They understand, oh, hey, wait a minute, I can browse the internet with Chrome, get nothing, or I can browse the internet with Brave and earn something for my attention. Like those concepts, like especially now when we've got people that have been using it for a couple of years who will take screenshots of their wallet and say, hey, look, like I've earned like $100, over the past couple of years just from browsing the internet. Or, we have this option where people can redeem the BAT that they earn for like gift cards, or, the Uphold has like a MasterCard that you can use BAT with. And people are saying, oh, hey, I filled up my gas with money that I earned from using Brave. It's like, those are the wins, like people can understand that, and people can tie into that. And that's kind of how crypto in general, will get mainstream adoption. It's not because someone has the most pure decentralized thing over another thing. It's like, no, I was just going to buy groceries and then I got 3% crypto back and I managed to just earn all this Bitcoin or this BAT or whatever just from doing normal things. Like that's kind of what we're doing. Is it's like, you don't have to learn all the technical mumbo jumbo. You can just go turn on Brave Rewards, start earning BAT from viewing ads, and before you know it, these numbers add up. Like it becomes something meaningful to people.
Absolutely. I think you're right. It is all about relatability. I mean, not everybody's technical. Like they can understand speed and they can understand money. I think those things most people can wrap their heads around. I know I can. I know I'm nerdy, so I do like to understand. I've worked in data for a while, so I do like to understand the background and people can correlate data and I like what you're doing because aggregate data, right? Like that's kind of like what, like what you said, if aggregate data is leaked, it doesn't damage anyone. Whereas if personal data is leaked, it does damage people. And like what you said, I didn't even know that it can be used as to discriminate against people, which I think, this is tapping into a very scary place anyway, from my perspective. I think people should have that right. It should be a right that they have, and I'm after this episode, I think it's going to make me look more into what the European Union is doing. Is like you said, I know Canada does have pretty strict laws as well, but I'd like to probably learn more about them. But I guess so we've covered on a couple of things. We covered on what Brave is, how it's different, what's the functionality. And so can you maybe let the audience know, like, what are your plans in terms of where you think you're going to be going as well?
Yeah, sure. So happy to do that. We had in February we released like a version 2 of our BAT roadmap, and like we launched the BAT in May of 2017, and then we got the ad platform up, and we've got these creators doing these things, but when we did our white paper, like DeFi wasn't a thing. And, over the past year and a half, we started to notice that DeFi protocols started to add BAT as a asset for people to use in Compound and the MakerDAO folks. And all those folks started adding BAT as an option. And so what we started to do is like put together this roadmap that kind of ties everything together. Because if you go into Brave right now on the desktop, we have 3 wallets that kind of live in isolation from each other. We have a Web3 wallet that is kind of a MetaMask fork that you can use for Web3 transactions on Ethereum. We have just a credit card, save your credit card option that Chromium ships with the browser. And then we have Brave Rewards, which is this ad ecosystem that we've been talking about. What we're doing is the first key point of this roadmap is to kind of unify all those things into one unified wallet in the browser. And then the second bit is to put a DEX aggregator on top of that. So you have an option where you can load your credit card, you can do swaps for other crypto assets with a DEX aggregator, you can do Web3 transactions, you can be part of this ecosystem that we're building all from one location. Because the key to kind of demystifying a lot of this blockchain, bringing the blockchain stuff to the masses is demystifying it and basically making it as easy as like, put your credit card number in once, save it. Okay, I want this to be a blockchain transaction. Pick this option. Like not having it be as kind of scary or separate or voodoo as it is for a lot of people. And kind of introducing options that let you cross over too. So, if you have a Gemini or an Uphold account, you can add that into this wallet as well. Just giving people more options. And then once you do that, you can open up this world of DeFi to people. You can put in, really good NFT support for people that want to start using NFTs for collectibles or to access, content or services or whatever. And a browser is a great platform to do that. So the roadmap kind of touches on all of those things, and it touches on kind of further decentralizing our ad platform as well. So there's kind of like the key 3 pillars to this roadmap that we're doing. And the other big thing that we're doing, we announced in February, shortly after the roadmap, is Brave Search. So we acquired a company called Tailcat. They have they have a really independent private search engine that has their own index. Because if you start looking at search engines under the hood, they're basically all like Bing or Google. So this company put their own together. They're really good. So we're working on an independent search option too that we'll be testing out in beta soon and adding to Brave.
Wow. So you have a lot of things coming up for you. I guess I want to touch further on like a message maybe to content creators. How can they, well, first let's start with like, so for everyone watching, in order to get Brave browser, you can download it, right?
Right.
And start using it. But in terms of if someone is a content creator, how do they get in touch with you? What do they do? How does it all work?
It's pretty easy. If you go to creators.brave.com, and it has just a process to get started. If you're a YouTube creator, all you really have to do is kind of OAuth your YouTube account. So use your YouTube credentials, and then means you own the channel basically, and then go through our onboarding process and get started. And then once you're set up, and then anybody in Brave can basically, start contributing back to you.
So is that more on, there is a Twitter an option for people, or other places options for people as well? Like I know a lot of people live on crypto Twitter, so.
Yeah. We've integrated tipping directly into Twitter. So, there's in Brave, there's a tip button in tweets on Twitter. And so, yeah, if you have a Twitter account, just like if you had a YouTube account, you just go to creators.brave.com, and you can just sign up with your Twitter account or your Reddit account or your Twitch account or GitHub or YouTube, Vimeo, and or your domain if you have a website.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much. And I think Omar wanted to know a little bit about your lessons learned. Omar, is that something I heard earlier? You wanted to know about like what the hurdles were?
Yeah. What are the challenges that like the browser, future holds? Because for example, a lot of people have told me, okay, and part of our audience is a lot of women. They're saying, oh, what about the browser towards my kids? The kids like face a lot of risk in the actual model. Like what is browser could offer to these challenges? Yeah.
I think there's a bunch of challenges, right? Some of them, people have a hard time switching browsers, right? Because the best example I can use for this is having worked in marketing browsers, right? Is that buying a browser is kind of like switching cars. You don't really do it unless there's something new that you want to drive, or unless something's horribly wrong with the one that you have. And right now it's kind of both of those things happening. But getting people onto it has been a challenge to make sure that it's easy, to make sure that like we can get you in basically 3 steps in less than a minute to be able to port everything over from one browser to another. And also, we've done a lot around proving concepts around making privacy work with business, et cetera. But what we have to do at a larger scale, because Brave's at 29 million monthly active users right now, and we're almost, I think, right around 10 million daily active users, and we want to get to over 100 million, right? And in order to do that, we have to compete with the Googles and all the big tech in the world, and their big play is around convenience. And so not only do we have to kind of go in with privacy, but also like, how do you make privacy convenient now? Like, how do you make it easy for people that are sucked into this Google, Facebook world to port over into one that protects their privacy better? So we have a video chat product that is similar to Zoom, that's private and secure, that we're integrating into the browser to make it so that you can have unlimited calling directly from the browser without Zoom bombing or any of those risks. Because we've actually worked with a couple of community colleges where they've had students that have basically had to go on leave because it's been disturbing things have happened with people Zoom bombing in classes and doing horrible things. And so giving people more options, right? Like whether it's, options of video chat, VPN services, things that are very like, aligned with privacy use in general. And then also, with parents, I'm a parent. I have 2 kids, and it's like, if you look at the apps that these kids use and the amount of resources that those use, data collection is real with this, and it's like, you want to protect your kids as much. So ways that we can kind of help to sync across devices for like a family, or set authority for a parent to be able to control settings, right? Those are things that we're exploring too. Eventually, it'll be a ways off the roadmap, but once you start with privacy, like if the fundamentals are sound, then whether you're a kid or an adult or anybody, should be able to jump in. And that's part of where we're going at. Like people look at what we're doing on the privacy side as extreme, and you kind of have to be extreme if you really want to tackle the problem and you want to build something that can work anywhere, not just in Europe or Canada or the US. You want to be able to build something where I can go out and tell an advertiser, hey, you can advertise anywhere with this thing, regardless of GDPR or any other regulation too. But you can go to parents and say, look, you can have your kids use something here where they're not getting spied on by everybody and, taken advantage of, right? Like, which is, fundamentally kind of the problem with advertising right now, is that it's just manipulating people based off the data that they're collecting.
Yeah, I hear you on that, and I'm hoping that that's something you guys get to. And it's good that you've developed what you have, and it's good to know that that's something that you're thinking about in terms of where you're going as well. I think those are very important topics. So, yeah, good news on that, and yeah, it's I didn't even consider that. Yeah, they're like, it's pretty much everybody's data is being taken, whether you're an adult or you're a kid, and it's like. Yeah, it's kind of mind-boggling because you're like, this is happening, but most people, it's so like convenient for them to just give it away that they don't know that this is happening. But I think it could be a life-changing thing. Like if someone's living in a place like a developed country, like $100 for them may make the difference in their life, when they're collecting tokens for their internet. There's more people, like I said, at Futurist that have access to cell phones than to water, and this is the current reality of the world. So it's more likely that that these people will be using the internet, and it's just a matter of the how and who and what happens. But yeah, I think there's a lot of, you're tackling a lot of things, and that's good to know, because I do feel like right now a lot of the time there's these cookies, there's this, there's that, and it's like, where does it end? And like, where does the user say like, enough's enough, like you're not gonna make money off of me anymore, and I think it's super important that people are aware, that they know, and then they make an informed choice. They need to be informed, and they need to make a conscious choice about their actions, and that influences their behavior. And yeah, and that's another thing, like living in a world where our behavior can be influenced by large corporations. It's very scary. It's not funny. Like I think about it, I'm like, your subconscious mind is impacted if someone's flashing something to you 10 times a day. That means they have access to your mind and access to your consciousness. And it's like, whoa, what do you want to be letting in? And like, at what point, like, you don't even like, like that line can be so fine where it's like, you're in control of your seed. But if you've seen something in the background, 100 times, like it can influence your behavior. So it's very important.
Especially when it follows you across devices too, right? And I think like you made a good point too about like, when's enough. And I think that what you're seeing happen right now in the market, because you have like Google, I don't know if you all have seen, like Google has been making news about how they're kind of getting rid of third-party cookies, and then, Mozilla does, and Firefox has, Safari has as well. And Apple's been kind of doing a lot of work around that. What you're seeing is, the browser is the user agent, right? And that's really kind of become the last line of defense for users and their privacy, because if you don't stop it there, it's not going to get stopped, and even that, like, these companies, Google may talk about doing things in a more private way in the browser. They're not changing anything about what they're doing on YouTube or on their third-party apps or anything else that is also, or your Android phone or anything like that. So it's like, it's kind of this like Russian dolls of just data collection, and so can I block enough of that in enough places? And on iOS, for example, we actually released a firewall VPN product in Brave that lets you actually block all the stuff that's happening in other apps on your phone too. So you can kind of like extend that protection outside of the browser for the first time. So it's just really, we're thinking about it like that, like how can we take what we're able to do in the browser and kind of extend that out and help your whole life be a little more private.
Is there, this is a selfish question, but is there going to be an ability for people to stream off of your basically meeting software onto platforms like YouTube though?
Yeah. So like, just think about having kind of like a full featured Zoom offering. It might not be the initial offering we do, but that's where we're headed with this, because we have over 1 million creators that have verified with us. And so we've been also like looking at, we have this way for them to earn, right? But I've been running case studies for the last 10 months with 6 different content creators where in addition to people earning from using this, well, what happens if we use the ad platform to promote their content too, to help them grow their audience? Because these same creators are earning back. Well, if we grow your audience in Brave, not only do you have more people contributing to you, but also people outside of Brave, your revenue goes up because your audience growth is big. And just really quickly, like we did one example of this guy, Scott Cunningham, Scott C Business on YouTube and a crypto creator and podcaster. He had about 3,000 subscribers. It took him, several years to build that up. And in February, we started running these ads with him, and we took him from 3,000 to 5,000 subscribers in 2 weeks. And about 6 weeks in, or 7 weeks in now, he's up to 16,000 subscribers. Wow. Yeah. And so like when you can start to grow your audience with Brave, right? Maybe you're earning more BAT. Well, imagine we have this option with this unified wallet to tap into DeFi. Well, maybe you can start using that BAT and lending it or borrowing it or leveraging, figuring out ways to kind of fuel your own growth with Brave. And the cool thing about what we saw with Scott was that as his audience grew, like just going from 3,000 to 5,000, his YouTube RPMs, the money he's making from YouTube ads, went up from $1 to $2 to $3 to $4. I think it's up to close to $9 now with the additional growth. So not only do you get your additional funding from users in Brave and from that growth, but everything outside of Brave gets better too. So we're thinking about it that way too. Like with the video product, how can we extend this to creators in a way that they can actually use this and make it easy, affordable, and something that they can connect to their audience with, and so Brave is kind of becoming this like super app where you've got like super app for privacy and for content creation and funding the web.
That's awesome. Yeah, because we do pay for a Zoom subscription, and then in order for us to, let's say, now stream this on LinkedIn and Facebook, I'm looking at another software to like basically like that connects Zoom between Zoom and YouTube and everywhere else, so that I could do it on the different platforms at the same time. So yeah, that's really interesting to know that, because that would be really good for people who are doing content. And like, it's interesting because I have been tipped for my tweets on Twitter before, and I love that. And like it's just great to know that, there's people out there and they can easily do that and contribute, and it motivates the content creators to do their content. And even if it's small contributions, I think what matters is like the whole collaborative environment and people really like, feeling like they can have other options that are possible for them. Because I'm not really sure, like Zoom how will you make it viable for you as a company to have a software that is like a meeting software? What is in it for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can look at it as like, well, we could have an option where, hey, you can make unlimited one-to-one calls with this service in Brave if you opt into rewards, which then turns on our private ad model. So then, you know, you're also earning from that too. So there's some added value there. Or you could also see if maybe somebody like just doesn't want to see any ads at all, you know, offering a paid option too that's affordable, but is, you know, giving you those additional privacy and security benefits that you would get with Brave over Zoom or anyone else. I mean, the thing that's like super interesting about all this is that Zoom's made hundreds of billions of dollars and they can't seem to manage to put resources into like preventing some of these things from happening, you know, people Zoom bombing into classrooms and all these other things, you know, and it just kind of shows you where priorities are, even with these big organizations. And kind of if you start with the right principles and the right foundation, you know, then you get that kind of natural network effect around it, which we're starting to see. But I think really it's about giving people a better deal, you know, like giving creators a better deal, like giving users a better deal, and advertisers too, for that matter.
Yeah, well, I'm rooting for you because I think it's a better model for creators. You know, but at the same time, I think because I really do believe in it's also, I think we're kind of riding on a fine line with what's acceptable and what's not, and how the laws are defined in different places, and there needs to be a standard that, you know, that helps to protect consumers, users, and I think it's really important. It's like putting the power back, and then they can decide, you know, if they want to use Google, if they want to use this, they have to know the consequences. But if they use Brave, they'll also like, and like you said, you'll have the search engine, you have other things on your roadmap. You know, I think it would be how many, I wonder, because Signal crashed when Elon Musk said he's using Signal crashed. So I'm hoping for you, Elon Musk just like puts you as his browser, and then you'll probably reach 100 million users in like a day.
We would welcome that.
Absolutely. So I'm putting that out in the universe for you.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for joining us today. It's a pleasure to see you again. We spoke last time at the Futurist. Thank you, Omar, so much for always supporting me and being here with us and contributing. I hope everyone who's been listening to this subscribes. You have a lot more coming up. We'll probably come back to interview with you after you've done a couple of things on your roadmap to have another conversation. And yeah, just encouraging our audience to try Brave, see what it's like, see if you like it. I've been using it now ever since November. I know Omar has too, since I did the interview during Futurist, and I'm really happy about it.
Yeah, so, thanks so much.
Thank you so much. Have a good evening. Thanks.
Yeah,
Bye-bye.
You too. Bye.
Bye. Okay, so I just stopped recording.